Okay, there was a 1 minute lapse there where uh, we lost you. The screen froze up on my end. I could.
Yeah, froze up on mine. But we're back now, everybody. Had a little rest.
Okay, yes. So we were just speaking of the value and importance of keeping open for an evolution of friendships. That our needs change, our adventures change, and that would naturally mean that our friendships will change. And that doesn't mean leaving friends by the wayside by any stretch. But I can certainly attest to things always changing for me. Nikki's one of those new friends of the last decade, and so well said. Tell us, Nikki, about taking actual action and using some of your ideas to reveal yourself, to make yourself interesting to other folks, or to otherwise um, get the ball rolling towards end results that we were talking about.
I just needed to meet so many new people because it was like I had almost my past had disintegrated. So in those days, I had my work, but I also needed to make friendships with other more social friendships. So I wrote down another list. My house is full of lists. If anybody's been, you'll know Deborah. So I started to write down, like I said, the kind of people that I wanted to be around. And then I wrote another list of where I would find those people. So, for instance, I joined a yoga class, but I made sure that I was the first person to get to the yoga class. So when other people came, they came into me. So while they were getting the mats out, they had to speak to me. And, within a couple of weeks, we were having a drink after or a coffee after. So I've met people there. And then I started to go into different events, people that were interested in the same thing as me, and meeting people there. And that was like countrywide. And I'm still friends with a lot of those people. I suppose a good example of that is that if people want to meet people like us that are on this call now, get yourself to the Hay House event in London because, the place is full of them. If you want to meet people, there's no question about it. You target where you want to go and you get yourself up, you get yourself dressed and you get down there because chances are they're not going to come tapping on your window.
I've seen you, you joined us on some of our cruises. I've seen you in social settings. I've seen you on stage. You have the ability to warmly embrace literally anyone who talks to you, or to approach literally anyone. Whereas I find myself, and I think this is not that uncommon, trying to be discerning. What do you say as to where to strike a conversation? How do you know when you got the green light or not have the green light, that it's going to be worth your time or not worth your time, if you're going to spread yourself too thin? Because everybody's busy. Everybody feels like they're already doing enough. So they go to a Hay House event and they see a lot of people who all went there with friends. They feel alone. What do you do next?
And just before that, I was smiling when you said go on the Tuck cruises. Can you remember when I had that bad Botox job on the first cruise? I still laugh at that. And anybody that were on it will be laughing at that, I'll tell you, although I wasn't at the time. I actually scan a room because I've got so adept at connecting to the right people that I actually scan a room energetically to see where I want to be. I'm very rarely wrong these days, but that is something that you kind of have to evolve into. We can all do it. And some of my very, very best friends I have met at that kind of event. But you see, there's a couple of points here. One, everybody seems to think that, that people don't want to be friends. They do. 99.9% of the people out there want to talk to other people. It's just that they're not quite sure how. And a lot of people, shyness comes over as if they're not bothered. And that's, I don't think that there's too many people. I just assume everybody wants to be friends. But you can't, some people are acquaintances. Some people are special friends, and some people it's just fleeting. You know, like Facebook, when you put a like on somebody's page and then you've forgotten about them. There's nothing wrong with those kind of people in your life. It's just a slightly different category. So we've had this kind of strange instruction that if you get people to talk about themselves all the time, then they're going to be happy. Well, that's not true. You know, I've never found that to be real. And it may have been 50 or 60 years ago when we only met, I don't know, my grandfather would have met 200 people in a lifetime. You and I meet 200 people a week. You know, why would anybody why would you want to start telling everybody you meet about yourself? You have to anchor who you are in people's presence first. So it's almost like you have to tell them something slightly personal about you to get them to go, oh yeah, sorry, I get you now. And I call those positioning statements. I can give you a few examples of them in a second. But just to qualify that further, you know, I speak to everybody like I've known them for 30 years. And I have never in my whole life had one person be offended by it. Most people are happy that somebody's actually started that conversation.
I'd like to point out, just because that conversation went a little bit unpredictably, or that piece you just shared, Nikki has commented on the fact that we have all been told, and I know it's true for me as well, that if you want to strike up a conversation with someone, find out about them, have them start talking about themselves. And you're spot on. Nobody wants to meet a stranger and start talking about themselves. They would much prefer the opportunity to learn a little bit about you, someone who's obviously interested in starting a conversation and someone who's confident enough to say something about themselves. And so that's the idea here. And it's one of those things when you hear it, you're like, of course, take the pressure off of them. You know, because if I meet somebody, whether or not they know I'm a speaker or a writer or my work, you know, I don't really want to talk about me. Like, where did I go to school? Where do I live? It's just like, okay, I'm going through the role here. I'm going to be a good participant in this conversation, and I'll answer your questions. And then I'll ask you the same questions about yourself that you asked me. It's like, no, Nikki, tell us a better way.
Yeah, you see, I have a little phrase, and it's like these days, what is going on in our subconscious when we meet people at networking events or seminars or wherever? We have so many people in our life. Our life is just full of people these days. So in our subconscious, we're thinking, do I want you in my life? Oh, hang on a minute. Do I want to be meeting you in Starbucks? Or do I just want to delete you? Have I got room for you? Who are you? You're kind of checking people out in a way that you may not have done 50 years ago. So the magic happens when you can say, actually, this is who I am, and now you understand me and you understand who I am, we can have a conversation. So an example of that, when I meet people, let's say that it's a work situation and I could be anybody. So let's say that I'm at a networking event, for want of a better environment. And people, you know, I get into conversation. This is how I would position myself. It's almost like a little story. So I would probably say something like, you know, 20 odd years ago, me and my lovely ex-husband took a market stall business from £1,000 a week to nearly 2 million a year. Everything I learned on that market, I modify and reapply to different businesses now. And you know what? To treble overnight is not unusual. Well, I've just told you how good I am at what I do. I've just told you where that knowledge came from. And I've kind of told you what it means to me. So I've given you quite a lot of dimension of information in that one defining positioning statement. And it's very rare that when you do that, it's difficult for people to go, oh, really? Oh, right. Because most likely they're going to go, oh, that's interesting. Tell me how you do that. And then they're going to tell you how they got to where they are. And that's important because, you know, all those years ago when in Barnsley, just up road here, you know, people would go down the pit at 16 and come back out again at 65. And that was their life. We didn't need to know how people got to that point in life because it was usually very clear. Now, when we all do different things and jobs, you know, appear from different places, it's to have an understanding of who people are. We kind of like to know how they got to that point. It's almost like a short, very potted history. Has that made any sense to anybody at all?
So will you help us now or in the webinar to craft our own little elevator intro, because not everyone has turned a market stall from nothing to 2 million a year. How do we mine our own histories or know what to focus on?
There'll be a very clear exercise in the webinar, but I'll just give you one more example of what I mean. A few months ago, I had a businessman from Leeds come to see me, and he said, I'm just getting misunderstood. I'm really getting misunderstood. And I said, well, why? He said, well, I run this multi-million-pound business. He said, I've been divorced 3 times and I've got 2 children with each family. So I've been divorced 3 times and I've got 6 kids. And he said that when I say that to people, I normally get like a blank look, or they have an opinion of me, because you kind of think of these kids, and the family all being upset, the children being a little bit out of control. So we just taught him to say, yeah, I run this enormous business, and I've been married 3 times and I've got 6 kids. Now you know why I'm so good at organisation and why my business is so successful. And the finish of that sentence actually made sense of him, because those children had just turned into the Swiss Von Trapp family, because they were all in little rows in our mind. And all we did was finish the sentence. He'd be going, blimey, I've been married 3 times, I've got 6 kids. Now you know why my life is so organised and I'm so good at business.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Turn up.
And I will teach people how to do that on the webinar. It's actually not as difficult as it seems. A defining story. How did Elvis Presley become the biggest at what he did? How did Mother Teresa do what she did? They told a little defining story about who they were that made sense of them and made us accept them into our lives. I'm going to show you how to do that.
Sounds really good. I want to encourage everybody watching right now, or listening if you don't have a video monitor, to use the little panel here at the bottom of your screen. It should have popped up already. It's called Questions and Answers. There's already 2 questions there. If you have any questions for Nikki, go ahead and post there, and Nikki, I'll send them your way, read them to you when the time's right. The first question now, I'm sure we're all wondering, I'd like to know too, about the portrait behind you, Nikki. Can you give us a full shot of that portrait?
I will move out of the way. Have a look at this now. Isn't that absolutely amazing? I've been offered thousands for that. And
can you scan it so we see the whole thing?
Oh, scan it. Oh, yeah.
I don't see the whole thing. No, just hold the camera up.
Can you see it?
Yeah, it's too close now.
Hang on a minute. There you go.
Wow. That's beautiful.
So, and it's quite topical actually, because when I worked for the design agencies, I got invited to a dinner party in London, and it was in somebody's studio, and that actually, it was just propped up against the wall. So I went into this dinner party and said, love that picture, and I bought that for £100. And it had been done by a street artist. And you know what? I wish I could find him now. I really do. Amazing.
Spectacular. Somebody else has asked a question, and then we'll go back into the presentation. Mike, you mentioned that we needed to show up. Can you give us a few examples on how to do it? Oh, that's as simple as whatever it is you want. whether it's a new work or a new relationship or some kind of other change in your life, what do other people do about that? Are they making cold calls? Are they joining Match.com or internet dating sites? Are they networking? Are they learning another language? Are they doing continuing education? That's all I mean when I say show up. I mean, it's imperative that you get out of the house after you have defined what you want in terms of the end result. The end results given tonight were brilliant because they imply so much. The end result Nikki shared was, what kind of people would you like to be associating with, either romantically, professionally, or in every regard? How do you want them to make you feel? What kind of travel would you like? What kind of, how would you like to feel about yourself? What gifts would you like to express? How much money would you like to make? Once you've got these end results, otherwise known as goals and dreams, and you understand how life works, your thoughts become things, you're the eyes and the ears of the divine, come alive, here by choice, to rock and roll, default settings, wealth and abundance, friends and laughter, creative, fulfilling work. When you understand the truth and you've got end results, there's only one more thing necessary, and it always seems insufficient. It always will seem feeble, unjustified, inadequate, and that is the baby steps. That's what I mean when I say show up. So just go to the job fair, go to the I Can Do It event that Hay House hosts in London and all over the world. Go to the Tut events, go to Tony Robbins events, go on a travel photographic safari or things that resonate with you. Because you've programmed the magic and you've given it a green light through understanding it, and now you're in the world, the right people at the most unexpected time will show up on your path, and one thing will lead to another, and you'll look back and you'll wonder how you went so far and whatever you did to deserve so much, as I often wonder what I ever did to deserve so much now. But I do know that the answer is that we are spiritual beings in a spiritual world with supernatural powers that only need our end results, understanding, and presence in the world. And Nikki's talking to us about all of this, particularly presence. And so once you're out in the world, Nikki, and you're sitting next to this ho-hum person on the bus, should you say something to him, or do you save it for the CEO, and what do you say to the next person? Okay, well, you've already given us some excellent tips. What more?
Well, you know what, I would speak to anybody. I don't, the CEO, the person on the bus, I don't actually care who you are. You're interesting to me. And I just want to make the point, because you did mention you did mention meeting, dating. I don't know, I think you did anyway, unless it were in my head. But you know what? I'm not averse to the odd date, ladies and gentlemen, but I wouldn't know how to start meeting people online. And that was a big thing for me. And I don't want anybody to think that it is any different speaking to people of the opposite sex. It is not. Absolutely. It's the same components, no matter who. And even if you do meet people online, sooner or later, you're going to have to be in each other's presence and express the real you. So, that's going to be quite a lot of content when we get to the actual 3-part webinar. And, all the people, and, I don't know if anybody's asking or not, or even if it's in your mind, but I'm telling you anyway, all the people that I have met, as in the gentleman callers, since I split up with my husband, I have met mostly friends of friends, including one of your friends, Michael. But as you remember, but yeah, they've all been friends of friends, and that is the way that it works. Advanced communication techniques, you never know who you're going to meet. You really don't.
Yeah, and I think what happens, as you just implied, there's this critical mass finally achieved. So however difficult it is in the beginning, as long as you embrace it head on, every day it's going to get easier, because as you have 1 friend, 2 friends, 5 friends, 12 friends, then the wheels are spinning. And if your energies are open to it, and that's what you've put out to the universe, those connections start to grow exponentially. So just like Toastmasters speaking, the first speech sucks, the first 10 suck. If you resist them, you're going to hate speaking forever. The best thing to do is embrace it and give those first 10 speeches so that you can more quickly get to the point where it becomes easier and more fun. And I even gave a speech on this topic, Nikki, something to the effect that life rewards effort exponentially. And I use as a metaphor, it's coming back to me. You know, I have this fondness for trees and seedlings, and I've planted hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands. And you know, when you put one tree in the yard, you know, you can water it, talk to it, and fertilize it. And in a year, you might have a stick that's 2 feet longer, you know, if it was a seedling. Maybe 2 feet if you live in Florida, 1 foot anywhere else. But if you keep taking care of that tree from the 10th year to the 11th year, now that it has 100 branches, each growing 2 feet, you're gonna, in 1 year, the same year that yielded 2 feet 10 years ago, now is gonna yield 200 feet. And this is what life does for us, whether it's cold calling or networking with friends or taking the initiative to go out on those nights you just didn't feel like going out, but you made the best of it. The universe has a way of extracting from our past every single good and not so good thing that happened, so that it will be added to the whole of who we are, and everything gets easier forevermore. So anybody who's right now living their story of the dark night of the soul, as we talked about, we lived earlier, not that anybody has to go through that, most certainly you don't, but anybody living that right now, it's not going to get worse. It's going to get better. As long as you face it head on and you make these connections and fearlessly embrace these ideas that Nikki's sharing, where, you know, you share with strangers who you are in a genuine, authentic way. And you will have a fast friend because they're going to say, oh, that's just like me. And so
absolutely. And you know, what we're talking about is evolving emotionally, which you get chance to do when you're with the right people. And you just said something then that reminded me, you know, there is nothing worse than having a life-changing event to make you lose confidence. And you know, the best way to get your confidence back is to start meeting people again, because while you're around people, you can't possibly contract. You have to expand. So it's really important. And we all have bad times and lose jobs and terrible things happen. The worst thing you can do is to keep yourself on your own. We need to get you out in people. The first time, it might be difficult. The second time, slightly less difficult. I can guarantee you, when you learn advanced communication techniques, I can guarantee you that after 3 months, you're rocking and rolling. And that is played out in every business that I work in. You know, I work with a lot of people of my age that maybe, I don't know, maybe sadly the husband or the wife have passed away, or they've got divorced, and they've had to go back to work. They never thought in a million years they would be back in that situation. And they are terrified at meeting people because they never thought that they'd have to put themselves out there. And what a joy it is to hold their hand and to show them what we're going to teach people on this webinar. And 6 months later, they're completely different people, because having people in your life gives you a life.
Well said. And, you know, I can remember at a low time in my life, after my big meltdown, it was after a relationship. And I remember going out to a Toastmasters meeting because I had nowhere else to go, and I was going to keep going until I had something better to go to. That was my mission. It took 7 years. Meanwhile, a lot of things took off in my life, including the life I lead right now. But I remember going to the club, and everybody seemed like their normal self, happy. And I remember thinking, I wonder if I'll ever be happy. And I really felt I didn't know the answer to that. It seemed like a long shot because I was in such a dark place, but that's not really what we're talking about tonight. But anybody in that place, you're going to be all right. Now, let's look at some questions we've got here for you, Nikki. It looks like, I don't know what that is. What quick tip can you give to present yourself when you are not currently working and you want to transition to a new field?
We have to look at every single touch point of communication and the way that you present yourself. So if you were stood in front of me now, and we don't need to spend a lot of money, but we'd look at the way that you presented yourself with clothes, we'd look at your emails and the way that you wrote an email, we'd look at the tone of your voice when you're having a conversation with would-be employers, every single touch point of the way that you expressed who you were and why you would be good at that job. But the first thing I'd have you doing, my friend, is going back to where we started, which was writing down everything you'd been told about yourself and all your preconceptions. Then we'd find out what you were really good at and who you really were, and we'd put that out into the world.
What did you say? Touch point? Touch point?
Touch point. So every touch point. So there's many dimensions of
TOUCH?
Yeah, yeah, touch point. So it could be vocally, visually, on email, all these subjects we're going to cover. But every single way that we express ourselves, of which there are many dimensions, it's got to be very thought out because it's got to be truly you.
Okay. And to add to that, excuse me, Felicia, your question. So you're not working now. You want a tip for presenting yourself when you want to maybe transition into a field. I think what I would strongly advise, and you might have to fake it, is that this whole thing has been by choice. Okay, you have sat out to either raise kids or to help your mom or to do whatever, and now you're really excited. You're going to be out there, and I would tell people where you're coming from. Let it be like by choice, not like I'm forced to come out of my hiding now because whatever. Not that you would do that, and then possibly reading the person. I think ask for help. What do you think, Nikki? If somebody asks you for help, I find that endearing. Do you have any points? Do you have any suggestions? I'm new. What would you suggest to somebody coming to your company who is new with a background like mine, where we have taken care of other priorities first? And I think they would be like, oh, well, I would tell you to do this, and then you've got a conversation going. Does that sound workable, Nikki?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's those steps, but before get shut of the preconceived ideas about yourself, because just the fact that you're taking a risk. Sorry, what's this lady? It's a lady. What's she called? Felicia. Just the fact that you've come on this call tells me that you're taking a little risk and getting yourself back out there. So you've already taken the first step. So let's have a little look at what else you have got, what's good about you, and we're expressing that.
Okay, Diane asks, I find it difficult right now in my life attracting the right type of people. How do you prevent the wrong energy being attracted to you? And I got to just throw this out because it just came up in Massachusetts this weekend, and it was a note that got a lot of chuckles from the universe years ago and recently as a meme. Something to the effect of when you're really shining your light and you're being the best you can possibly be, you got to realize you're going to attract both moths and butterflies. And now comes the art and the learning of that art to discern which is which. And don't think because you've attracted a few moths that you're doing it wrong. You're going to attract every manner of creation to your wonderful glow. And now you get to subtly, with the universe's help, learn to distinguish and sense out, feel out, which are going to serve you and which are not. And this way it'll be a win-win situation for the both of you. Go ahead, Nikki.
And you're absolutely right. But you know what? When you've got bad people in your life and you've not got enough people to choose who you want to be with, you kind of stay around the bad energy just to be around people at times. The more people you've got in your life, the more choice you've got. But again, yeah, I mean, so all that, but again,
the more you get out, the more choice you have. Don't draw the conclusion that the first person that shows up who's really good looking or who's really wealthy, or depending if it's business or romance or whatever your priorities are, don't draw the conclusion that that's the answer. It might not be the answer. It might just be a moth preparing you for the answer, which is two more down the line. So go steady, go steady. There's no race here. Another question.
320 million people in the US. So you've got a few to go at, my friend. There's 7.5 billion people in the world. There's a few to go at yet. Get yourself out there.
Nancy asks, what if someone is not really a very outgoing person?
Well, you don't need to be an outgoing person to make it work, because we're actually projecting who you really are. We're not projecting anything that is fake. And it's the formula that works, because not everybody is going to be like me and Mike. You know, God help everybody if they were. They're not going to be outgoing people. You're just fine as you are. It's actually the formula that works, not the personality. And you know what? It's really quite interesting, because a lot of my best friends are actually the total opposite of me. It's like we complete the circle. They're actually quite shy and quiet.
Very nice. Okay. Okay, here comes a question that I actually pose sometimes. Cynthia says, how long before you let go of the desire or a dream? Sometimes the things we want aren't always the best for us. Sometimes the universe has other plans. Okay, that's for me. If your dream was too specific, it should not have been a dream. In meaning, if it was to do with a specific person or a specific how your real dream will come true. No. So sometimes we confuse cursed hows with dreams. We think, oh, my dream is to write a book. No, your dream was to live in abundance, or your dream was to be respected. Know what your dreams are and don't confuse them with what I call the cursed hows. And sometimes a dream can be a detail. All details, as I teach in Playing the Matrix, are unimportant. They're a dime a dozen. There will always be something that shines and glows and spins and twirls. And so if the detail is too specific as a person, a how, or a detail, then it probably shouldn't have been the dream to begin with. Whereas if the dream was happiness, when does one give up on their happiness? Never. When does one give up on being healthy? Never. Looking good? Never. Having friends? Never. Those are the fantastic five, plus happiness. When your end results are giving the universe latitude to connect the dots and decide where to put you and decide what label you wear, decide, who you walk down the aisle with, then you can't be too specific. And then you don't ever have to worry about giving up or was it wrong for you. It's only if you are too detailed might you be in a place where it seems impossible. I don't want to tell anybody it's ever time to give up on a dream. I would just say it's probably time to redefine those dreams and keep going, because you deserve happiness. Let me see here. Mike Nicky, can you show up via the internet if you are sick and can't leave the house? I've been sick for 4 years, which has been a blessing as is, sorted out my life and created so much bliss for me, but I want to write. I do write. I want to sell it, but I couldn't go to meetings, etc., out of the house yet. Nikki?
Yeah, you know what? We're on the internet now, aren't we? So you've got email, Facebook, Twitter. We're having a meeting with you now. So absolutely. You know what? In actual fact, it's probably more difficult to do it face to face than
Well said. Well said. All things are possible. You created a space for yourself for bliss right now, Sally. I would do what I could if I were you to eventually be available in the physical world, because it's pretty cool out here. but it's certainly not a reason not to make progress right from where you are. Bonnie, I was going to ask you questions. Oh, well, thank you, Bonnie. Nikki, you are fabulous. My husband has a lot riding on going out and introducing people to investment opportunities as private equity investors. He sabotages his efforts. How do I convince him that he can do it? He's listening and you know him.
Ah, hello. Well, it all comes down to skill, because quite often we sabotage ourselves when we just need that little bit more skill and formula to make those meetings go in the way that we want them to go, to create those connections in the way that we want them connected. So it is a definite formula, and the more you learn it, the more confidence you get. The more confidence you get, it's funny how more things drop into your lap.
And I've got to add to that as well. I was so not the speaker, and people say it's a gift. It's not a gift. People say schmoozing, networking. You know, no, you can learn anything. It's just how much you're driven by the desire to find that end result, or how fed up you are with things being the way they've been. And if you just keep showing up, you know, I saw many great speakers who were not great for their speaking protocol, but because they had something to say. And that is something that could be parlayed into any sales transaction, any quality or dispensation. You're there, you've got the deal, you've researched the deal. You don't have to speak without a stutter. You just have to speak, and you have to believe yourself, and believe in it yourself. And then with the tips that Nikki has already shared and will soon be sharing in the webinar, you come up with a game plan of things to rehearse and to practice, and it gets better, you get better, it gets easier, and it gets more fun, because all of this is about the fun, the love, the camaraderie of life. Wouldn't you say, Nikki?
Can I just say one really important thing, though?
Please.
This is not about manipulating people. If you don't have it in your heart and you don't genuinely want to connect with people and be with them, nothing will work. This is more about a place for you to put your heart, as much as a place for you to put your heart as it is to accept.
Nikki, you are brilliant. You've always been brilliant. I treasure your friendship.
And I treasure yours, my friend.
Thank you, everybody, for your patience tonight. There will be 2 recordings, part 1 and part 2, where we conveniently lost ourselves there, posted on the webpage. Your note from the universe tomorrow morning, everybody, will have the link and the posted videos already up. So in just a matter of hours, you can rewatch or share with a friend these 2 videos that we've just recorded in this last hour. So we hope to see you in the webinar that begins in September, featuring none other than Nikki Pattinson, me being the host moderator. Make sure she doesn't go out of bounds. And, Nikki, any parting words?
Oh, just lots of love from gorgeous Yorkshire. And if anybody's ever round here, drop me an email, I'll make you a pot of tea. Love from gorgeous Yorkshire. Can't wait to see you all again soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I really hope you've enjoyed it. I've loved being here. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much, Nikki. And good night, tally-ho, everybody. Woohoo!
Good night. Bye.